What's up guys, I'm Andy from 1A Auto. In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the front lower control arms on this 2001 BMW 325Xi. If you need this part or other parts for your vehicle, click the link in the description and head over to 1AAuto.com. I raised the vehicle. We're using a 2-post lift. If you're doing this at your house, you can use the jack and jack stands. I'm going to remove the tire to gain extra access. It's going to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to use a 17mm socket and an air gun. You can always use a breaker bar. Take these lug nuts out, or lug studs out. I'm going to get to the last one. I'm just going to hold the wheel so it doesn't fall. Take the last one out. And grab the wheel, pull it off. So I want to take this nut off and also the nut right here, but they're pretty rusty, so I'm going to use some rust penetrant. Spray it down, soak it for a little bit, right there and right there. Now I'm going to take a 18mm wrench, go over this nut. I'm going to loosen this nut up. Once I get a couple turns on the box side, then I'll switch to the open side. And take this nut off, get that nut loosened up. And sometimes you can't get it off because the axle's in the way. And we're just gonna leave it loose like that. So I'm gonna separate the ball joint from the knuckle right here. You can do this a couple of ways. Sometimes there's a clamp that you can slide in there and it pushes down on the ball joint. What we're gonna use is a fork. We're gonna try that method. You could also take a hammer and just tap on the knuckle itself. Just be careful, you don't want to break anything. I'm just going to use this pickle fork and a hammer. Don't worry about that. Slide that in there and we'll separate it. Now the reason why you might not want to use a pickle fork is generally it rips the boot on the lower control arm or on the ball joint. So keep that in mind. If you're gonna reuse the ball joint, you might not want to use this method. There we go, separated. Pull that nut out of the way. So if you're doing this job and you don't have an impact gun, what you're gonna want to do is take a 22mm wrench, get on this nut right here, and you're gonna wanna crack that free first. Otherwise, we're gonna loosen up these two bolts right here. Just use an 18mm socket, loosen these up. Do the same on this one. Those bolts are loose. I can take that one out. This one I can't get out until I break this free. Just take a pry bar, put it under here. Just pry this away. Then I can get the bolt out. Just gotta twist this a little bit. Pull that bolt out. And now we can get a gun on here. Take that nut off. Now I'm gonna take this nut off and just use a 22mm socket and an impact gun. All right, got that off. If you're gonna reuse this ball joint, you're gonna need to use a ball joint separator. What it does is clamps in here and pushes up on the ball joint. If you're not gonna reuse it, then you can either use a hammer on here or a pickle fork. So I'm just gonna use a hammer, try to break it free. If not, I'm gonna use a pickle fork. All right, so just hammering it off, I don't have enough stability with the arm, so I'm actually gonna use a pickle fork. Just slide it in here, just be careful not to hit the CV shaft. There we go. Now I did just put the nut back on just so it didn't go flying. Just put it on a couple threads and slide it out. So I need to access these bolts underneath here. This shield is in my way, so I'm going to remove the shield I'm going to use a 8mm socket extension and a ratchet, but I'm just going to hammer this on. These are pretty rusted. Tap that on. Use the ratchet. Loosen it up. Take that one out. There's another one up there. So I got this out. You may have to bend it a little bit to get this out. There may be another fastener right there. This one doesn't have that. But so take that out. So that heat shield is just on the passenger side where the exhaust is. The driver's side does not have that heat shield there. So if you're doing the driver's side, it's not as hard. So what we need is a 16mm socket and a ratchet, and we're going to take these two bolts out right here. There we go. All right, so the inside one, the one closer to the center of the vehicle, was getting pretty tight. Pretty close to the exhaust, so I had to switch to a ratchet wrench. So just use a ratchet wrench on that inboard one. Oh, all right, well, that's loose. They're both loose. Make sure you support the lower control arm so that doesn't happen. I'll take the wrench off. Slide it up. So we need to separate this bushing from the lower control arm. A good idea to do before you take this off is just take a marker and mark this on the control arm so that you at least index roughly where it went before. Then we're going to put the control arm in a vise like this, and there's different types of pullers you can use. You can try a different 2-jaw puller or 3-jaw puller or some other, be creative. They do make a special puller for this. I don't have it, so I'm just using this front end puller. And I'm going to tighten this down. This is just going to separate this from the control arm. And that came right off. Here's the old control arm. Here's the new control arm from AWD.com. As you can see, the shape is the same, has the same machined components. The end to go into the bushing, this machined hole for the ball joint, and the other ball joint comes with a ball joint and a nut. Take that off. This is just a cover for shipping. Get yours at AWD.com and you can do it yourself. So I have my mark right there. So I want to slide this on like that in this area. Just transfer the mark over to the new one. So that's good right there. So we know which way it goes. I have seen some people put grease on this. I don't think grease is a great idea. So I'm just going to use a little bit of soapy water because then it will evaporate eventually. Slide this on. Take a piece of wood and just use a hammer and hammer it on. Now the measurement we want is from right here to the top of there. We want it to be 170 millimeters. I don't have a millimeters tape measure, so it's a little more than 6.5 inches. So just Get it close. I'm just gonna hammer it a little bit more. That's about 6.5 inches, so we're good. And just line this up, take the bolts, get them started. You might have to push this out of your way a little bit. All right, so I got those 2 bolts started. Now I'll take my 16mm ratchet wrench, get the inboard bolt snug first, and then the outer one. I'm going to tighten these bolts down. If you can get a torque wrench in there to 44 foot-pounds. It's a little tight on that other one, so I can at least torque the outer one. So I'll take this inner ball joint, take the nut off here, just slide that in position. Have these 2 bolts, get these bolts lined up. Actually, it's a good idea to get the inboard one in first. Get that lined up. So this inside bolt, I'm not going to be able to get a torque wrench on because the arm's in the way. Otherwise, you want to torque this to 57 foot-pounds, and I'll do the same with that one. With a 18mm socket and a torque wrench, I'll torque this bolt to 57 foot-pounds. Now I'll take this ball joint nut, get that lined up. I'm going to take a 22mm wrench and tighten this up, but the ball joint stud is actually spinning, so I'll take a 6mm hex bit and put it on my ratchet, and that's going to hold the stud from spinning. And I'll tighten this up. And I'm going to tighten this down. Now, if you're able to get a torque wrench on there, which it's very difficult, you can torque that down to 57 foot-pounds. We're going to line up the lower control arm, ball joint through here. Take the nut, get this started. All right, then I'm going to take a 19mm wrench, tighten this nut right here. Now it's next to impossible to get a torque wrench on here. Maybe if you used a crow's foot, you might be able to torque this, but you're going to want to torque this to 48 foot-pounds. So just do the best you can. Now we'll take this shield, slide this back in position. Take the bolts or the screws, get these started. And if there was any other bolts that you had that were keeping this on, put those back in. Just take a 8mm socket, extension, and a ratchet. Just snug them up. Good. Now I'm going to put the wheel on. Just line up the holes. Take one of the lug studs, get that started. And I can grab the other ones. Now I'll just tighten these down, and then I'm going to lower the vehicle and torque them. All right, now I'm going to use a 17mm socket and a torque wrench. I'm going to torque these lug bolts to 95 foot-pounds. I'm going to torque them in a star pattern so that the wheel gets tightened down evenly. Then I'm just going to go around again, just double check. Good to go.
Thanks for watching. Visit 1AAuto.com, your place for DIY auto repairs, for great parts, great service, and more content.